Welcome back to CitiesSpeak. I am your host, Melanie Funder-Kay, Senior Executive with the National League of Cities. CitiesSpeak gives listeners an insider's view of what local leadership in America means today and features conversations with leaders about the biggest issues and challenges facing America's cities, towns, and villages. Today I am joined by Nicole Handy, Executive Director, America 250 Utah Commission. America's 250th celebration is a chance for everyone to take part of this major milestone in our nation's history. Across all 50 states, communities are coming together to mark America's 250th through a simple but powerful idea: sharing a meal with neighbors on Sunday, July 5th, 2026. America's Potluck invites communities nationwide to participate in this milestone in a way that is local and accessible. Nicole has helped spearhead this initiative in both Utah and with other 250th anniversary state commissions. Her background includes work in nonprofits, foundations, and state government, and she also serves as a city council member in Mill Creek, Utah. Nicole Handy, welcome to CitiesSpeak. Congratulations on your appointment to the Mill Creek City Council. The path to public service is different for everyone. What inspired you to serve?
Yeah, thank you. As you know, I recently got appointed to my city's council, to the city's city council, and have been involved for years with the city. Our city is somewhat young, newly incorporated. It's in its 10th year, and I have watched this city grow and evolve, and really have just wanted to continue to strengthen this community that my family has called home for 17 years and where I've raised my kids. And I really believe in local government, that it matters, because that's where the decisions that really, are made that affect the daily life of our neighbors and our families. And on like a really nerdy note, I really like how systems work. And I find that interesting too. It's like, oh, this is how you fix roads. This is how these things happen. These are how things are funded. And so there's a lot I'm finding out. I've been in for 3 months. I'm finding out that there's quite a bit to learn in order to make really thoughtful, informed decisions. I have a lot of respect for those that hold local office.
And how do you explain kind of like, again, whether it's the systems, how they work, or, I do think it's because you're so face to face with your residents every single day. How do you translate what it means, right? What does local government mean? How do you translate that for residents?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, just in those few interactions where these are people that are reaching back out to me saying, congratulations, I saw it in the newsletter, because I didn't run a campaign, right? Which sometimes there's some catching up to do. They'll bring up those maybe political questions that they have. And I kind of joke and say, I think we're just trying to get the streets fixed, or I think we're just really trying to get businesses to stay in our community because that's how we're going to fund it. And so I actually am finding that there's a lot of power in, as I'm learning things that I didn't know as just a citizen, that I get to educate others on it, and I'm close enough to the less educated place that I know what people don't understand. And so it's actually translating in a nice way where I get to say, did you know? Hey, I just figured this out too. And so sometimes I'm sure we'll get to the place where when you've been in office long enough or you've served long enough that you forget that these are just things that maybe the average person doesn't know who's in charge of what and what really makes a difference.
And how it works. Yeah.
And how it works. Yeah, exactly.
Well, this summer, America is celebrating 250 years as a nation, and you've been leading an initiative called America's Potluck, which will take place on July 5th. What is America's Potluck?
Yeah, thank you. America's Potluck is a grassroots effort to ask all Americans to share a meal with their neighbors and friends on Sunday, July 5th. The day after the 250th anniversary. It's a locally led, something that's easy to join. There's no required format or program. It's about coming together as a nation in a unified way where we connect with one another and break bread. We joke there's no wrong way to do it. It could be as simple as sharing a cup of coffee that day with someone, or gathering a larger street together to celebrate and commemorate the anniversary together.
Well, as a Midwesterner, I love the idea of a nationwide potluck, neighbors sharing a conversation. How do you see the potluck, you know, growing the sense of community? I think sometimes, especially right now, we feel like we're missing that. How do you think this is a moment to sort of bring people together?
I think this is an easy sell for us. It's an easy sell as we've reached out to other states saying, hey, will you come be part of it? It's an easy sell as we've chatted with other cities around the country, telling them about it, because when you share a meal, barriers come down. People meet face to face, they learn each other's names, they hear those small personal stories, and they start to see each other as part of the same place rather than just strangers. And I know we're all in the business of placemaking and helping to build an identity within our communities. And those moments of a shared meal or coming together feel really modest, but they do build that trust and familiarity that sometimes larger events don't. And so when you really sit across from someone and share that small conversation, we're building community. Um, and because America's Potluck happens at the neighborhood level, it reaches people where they already live and where they feel comfortable. It doesn't ask residents to show up to some formal civic event like a city council meeting that can be really intimidating, and they're supposed to know what's going on and they're supposed to agree on a single message. Where we're just inviting people to gather, to listen, and to be present with one another. And I think over time, those small connections add up, and they make our community feel more welcoming. They help residents feel a stronger sense of belonging and create relationships that cities and communities can build on long after July 5th, 2026.
Yeah, and so, we're talking a little bit about operations and things like that, and just again, your point about the people feeling like, oh, I should know something before I have to, before I go to a city council meeting or something like that. So the idea from the average person is this is an easy thing and it's a fun thing to go do. What should local leaders be thinking about? And how many communities are participating? Where should a community start? I know there's so many different events going on, of course, and only more and more as we get closer to the anniversary. What should local leaders be thinking about? Where should they start?
Well, I always start with capacity. So, if you have the capacity to go big, then I think this could be that, but it could also be as simple as sharing the logo and sharing the message in your newsletter. We have within our toolkit some easy templates for that. So that should be a really easy ask. Um, the to your point about participation, it is growing. Because it's grassroots, there's no way for us to really know who and how many are registered or are participating. We're trying to capture that with a map that I can tell you about. But based on our newsletter, partner signups, and our conversations at City Summit, we know that well over 200 cities are planning to promote America's Potluck to their residents. And then in addition to those local connections, as you said before, we're working within each state's 250th anniversary commission. And so we have almost all the states, including Puerto Rico, who's participating, and then national partners like Interfaith America, a large coalition of bridging and dialogue of groups and organizations. We have civics and service clubs like the Junior League and American Legion. The other day was like, yes, we saw it on their page. We were so excited that there's some excitement coming around it. It will be part of civic season this year. That's between Juneteenth and Well, now this year they've made it July 5th to include the potluck as part of that. So we're we see this growing and we see the participation growing. We just launched on our website, americaspotluck.org, a new mapping tool. So you can go in and fill out your potluck, name it what you would like, give it a street or a zip code, and then you can either mark it as public or private. So for the one that we're going to do on our street, we'll just mark it as private, and it gets to be Gregson Avenue Potluck. And we're just mostly bragging about it, and maybe causing a little bit of FOMO, but we also have the option there to make an event public. So if a city would like to do something kind of larger and invite people to that, or a restaurant in your city, or any sort of club or organization says, hey, we'll be a place for people to gather, they can put that on that map as well. So we're hoping to capture, at least, we know we won't capture everything, but capture some of that excitement on that map as well.
So it sounds like that anyone can, whether you're an elected official, or whether you're a person that just wants to have this potluck yourself. It sounds like anybody can do it, and they can go on and make it what they want. Is that accurate? And like, why are you hearing from either local leaders or residents about why they want to do this?
Mm. Yes, and to all of that, I think that is why it is resonating, because the barrier is low, and that it resonates with people as far as the connection goes. Um, we have on our main site, we have a toolkit that has invitations. So if you say, I want to do this, I want to participate, you can print almost like a window sign that says, hey, I'm hosting, please come this day, with invitations. It has a bunting that you can color. It has a get to know you game, so we're trying to find ways for hosts to have some tools to participate. But then we also have a toolkit for partners and larger organizations. So that toolkit that we can make available through NLC has ready to use messaging templates, a sample press release, a resolution if as a city you would like to say, hey, we're designating this day as a day of unity and we want everyone to share a meal. We're trying to make it as easy as we can for cities and any organization to promote this without having to start from scratch and pull all of these resources together. A few ideas that we've had for cities that they can kind of pick from. Cities can waive the permits maybe to close streets that day. I know a lot of cities already have potluck or, block party programs. And so maybe finding a way to integrate that where you are waiving or simplifying the permits or reducing those fees, streamlining applications. And we really have, if you do want to do something a little bit bigger, we've been kind of brainstorming about how to think flexibly about public spaces. I think everyone's always worried about the health department and what can you do. I do not have the answer, but we are brainstorming ideas. I was even talking with Mill Creek's event coordinator this week, and she was like, all right, if we think about our common as a public park and we let people reserve pavilions, can we let them, if we set up tables, can they just reserve the tables, right? So there's a lot of creativity that's going on around how do we make it work for our city? And that's a priority for our city, that we have people come and not only gather on their streets, but in our city center. But I think it can be anything to any of the cities that helps them. And one other idea, Melanie, I just keep talking, sorry. But one other idea is really to engage local businesses. Here in Utah, we're working with our restaurant association, and they are excited to bring in the businesses to this as well and ask them if they would like to do community tables. So maybe you're not bringing food to the table, but but we felt like a potluck doesn't necessarily have to be that you're bringing food. You're going to bring your experience. You're going to bring your stories to this table. And so maybe restaurants in your city might be interested in being part of this as well. And it's a way to get them into those local businesses.
So it's America's potluck in a box is what it sounds like, and people can pick or choose, what works for them. What of the you talked about the map and 200 plus different kinds of things. Could you just give like a couple of different examples of one place is doing this or this, just a couple of different specific examples of what folks are doing?
This last spring, I was in Virginia and talking with a community out there near the coast. And they said, we're not calling it potluck, we're calling it pie luck because it's a lot to bring a lot of food. But and this was actually last year. So they did a trial run this last summer, but they're only doing pies. And they just said, we don't need to do the food, but if everybody brings a different type of pie, we can still come together and we can share conversation. One of our cities in Utah has said, anytime we can close down Main Street, we're going to do it. And so they have talked about doing this longest table where they're hoping to put tables down the center to do that. And there are organizations that are doing that. I know there's an organization well, maybe we're getting too big because I've just told you how simple this is, but they're working with an organization to do a mile-long table, of course, in Denver, and inviting communities out or people out to participate in that. So there's a lot of exciting things that are happening. A lot of cities have said, let's utilize our parks.
Talked about the restaurants and the small businesses. Are there other ways? I think you mentioned some of the partners that you have, but are there other ways? I think it's a Sunday. Are there other ways you're in engaging the faith community or different partners? That is interesting.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, the interfaith. Yes, and then interfaith communities, we're finding that this really resonates with them. And as part of our toolkit, we have a flyer specifically for interfaith communities to ask them to come together to either invite their congregants and their members of their faith to participate with those on their street or in their neighborhood. Or we also know of some congregations coming together, kind of bringing two different faith groups together to participate to get that way. So we're seeing a lot of interest, and we know that will be a strong, that's like a church potluck is such a like quintessential moment that this is and it's on Sunday. This is their moment to shine and come through that way. And Interfaith America has done a good job with us of helping us pull some of those groups together as well.
And then just let's think about Monday, July 6th, the day after America's Potluck. These all different sizes and shapes and types of events have happened across the country. What's the lasting impact after that day? Of course, we're celebrating and marking this 250 years, but we're also looking forward.
Yeah, I think my hope is, and I think a lot of other local leaders, is just that we'll have stronger connections within that our city can continue to build on, that people can feel this connection to their community and wake up to neighborhoods where people have met each other and they know their neighbors and they've shared this table and they've started a conversation to make future civic engagement. And maybe this will spearhead some service projects or other community events where it feels more personal and accessible to residents. And, it's a simple model that cities can continue or add to what they're already doing. People like to ask about that. Well, what about after this year? And we're like, we're just trying to get through this year. But it is a low-cost way to bring people together at this neighborhood scale, resident-led, and in a welcoming way where people feel that sense of belonging and can strengthen, and we know that as people feel that, then it strengthens this social fabric and civic participation in our cities.
So I can imagine myself, if I'm thinking about, um, where I grew up in Wisconsin, I can think about, brats and cheese curds and that kind of thing. Or I could think about where I live now in Maryland and, crab cakes and all kinds of different things. What are you going to bring to your potluck? What are you doing for yours?
Well, first off, thank you for asking me what I'm going to bring and not whether I'm going to host that day. My neighbor, who is the one who always spearheads our neighborhood street potluck, will be hosting, and I'm sure I'll hit that one. And then I'll also hit, hopefully, the one that will be down near our city center. But for me, as I've thought about, what this could be, it's either going to be something with corn or something with cherries. So in Utah, the corn is just starting to come on, and so there's some excitement still. It's where you start to gorge yourself on these summer foods. And then Utah is, a big tart cherry producer. So I'm sure whether that's going to be cherry pie or corn on the cob, I will likely make double so that I can join my neighbors and then hopefully join whatever our city is doing. But I think that is the beauty of this idea that Rhode Island can do the clam bake, or you can, think of your Midwestern dish, or there's, Hatch chilies in New Mexico, but that everyone brings something to the table. And that although there will be some synchronicity around this and we can be coming together in a united way as a nation, each potluck will look different because it is the people that show up to it, and it's what they're bringing to the table. And each of those dishes tells a story about that place and the people that come together around it. And that feels a lot like America. So.
Well, absolutely. Nicole Handy, thank you for sharing your time and expertise with the National League of Cities on CitiesSpeak today. America's Potluck is a wonderful opportunity for local leaders to bring their communities together to share a meal, engage with one another, and celebrate America's 250th. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Melanie.
Thanks for listening to CitiesSpeak with Clarence Anthony. If you like this show, let us know. Share this episode with your friends and make sure to subscribe. We're curious to hear what you think, what you want more of, and how we can improve. If you have feedback or an idea for a guest you'd like Clarence to sit down with, send us your thoughts at citiespeakpodcast@nlc.org. Join us next month for a new episode. Like and subscribe here or wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time.